Can I have your attention, excuse me, can I have your attention, please? We'll be starting up shortly. Good evening and welcome to the Lowell Planning Board for March 17th, 2014. Tonight we do have a couple of matters under new business discussion, but before we get to that, we have minutes for approval. We have the January 6th, 2014 minutes for approval. Does any of the board members have any comments any corrections on January 6th? If not, we can entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of January 6th.
I'll second the motion.
Motion is made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Those minutes have been approved. Moving along, the second matter would be, let me pull mine out, for February 20th, 2014. Any corrections? If not, a motion to approve would be in order.
Make a motion to approve the February 20th, 2014 minutes.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. The motion carries. Those minutes are approved. And the last ones would be for the March 3rd, 2014. Any corrections? If not, a motion
So moved.
Second.
made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those minutes have been approved. Thank you, everyone. So moving along, tonight we have a discussion on the AS City Industrial Park Urban Revitalization and Development Project. The board will review the final draft of the AS City Industrial Park Urban Revitalization and Development Project, which is known as the AS City Industrial Park, an urban renewal plan which proposes to revitalize the Tanner Street Industrial Corridor to drive the next decade of job creation and industrial development in Lowell. The planned area includes approximately 108 acres roughly bounded by the Lowell Connector, Plain Street, and the active railroad line that crosses over Gorham Street. We did receive a copy of the plan prior to, I think, a meeting or two ago, and we had a brief discussion with staff, and I believe we have staff present tonight for the presentation. So saying that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Thomas.
Chairman, thank you very much. My name is Craig Thomas. I'm the city's Urban Renewal Project Manager. It's my pleasure tonight to come before you and the other members of the Planning Board to present the Air City Industrial Park, an urban revitalization and development project. That's the official state language for a new urban renewal plan that we've been working on for the last few years in and around the Tanner Street area. I know that, again, the full draft proposal was presented to the board some weeks ago. You've had a chance to look through it. I'm going to here walk you through the urban renewal background in the city, much of which folks here have been very intimately involved with the redevelopment elements and projects therein. Look at the Air City Industrial Park plan, talk through how it came to be, our vision for what the area can and will be, and then the redevelopment planning associated both for private redevelopment and public actions. And then we'll get into the section I mentioned in the cover letter to the board as a part of the formal urban renewal plan adoption per state regulation. This body must make two findings: that a proposed urban renewal plan is consistent with a local survey, and that it conforms with a city's or town's comprehensive plan. And so, as I again mentioned in the cover letter, I'll get into those details. First, we'll take a look at where we've been in the city. Those photos, many of those sites you may know. This is where the city was in 2000. Lowell is renowned from in the 90s forward, the redevelopment we've seen here as a gateway city, but there were some parts of the city that really needed some enhanced focus and redevelopment planning, as well as additional assets brought to bear. We have a mix of the Appleton Mills, the Marston Building, what's now Suffolk Street housing down the lower right, the site of the new replicated housing on Fletcher Street in the lower left, and the building on the corner of Adams, Suffolk, and Fletcher on the top left. I'm sorry, the name of the building escapes me. But around 2000, as this was happening, the city sought to create two new urban renewal plans in the Jam area, Jackson, Appleton, Middlesex, and in the Acre. The city had experience previously with plans in the 60s and 70s, but these were the two first modern plans in the era that were still of the city's rebirth since, again, the 90s. Well, today, I apologize for the small writing, but just to highlight very simply the things that we all know. In the Jam plan, which includes the Hamilton Canal District, we built the early garage. We've totally rebuilt Jackson Street and the Canal Street Bridge to provide access to the Hamilton Canal District, where 110 Canal has finished their core and shell fit out. The Appleton Mills is now fully tenanted and a part of that community. and we've seen an incredible amount of mill redevelopment, including the Appleton Mills, Loft 27, the Cotton House Lofts on Jackson Street across from the Appleton Mills, Lowell Community Health Center, which is in part of the old Adden Furniture Building, and we have 2 projects underway, the Counting House Lofts, which is the narrow building that fronts directly on Jackson Street that you'll see work happening over the next 18 months or so, as well as the Mill Number 5 project happening across from Appleton Mills. In the Acre, we've similarly seen significant success, large projects that have been redeveloped, including the Stocklosa School, Senior Center Rite Aid Complex, and Market Basket. We've rehabilitated and built infill housing that's appropriate with the neighborhood character on Marion Street, now called Cork Street, Suffolk Street, and Fletcher Street. There have been mill redevelopments as well, the former Giant Furniture Building, the Textile History Museum, and Western Avenue, and we have a new Canalway and several green spaces. So we've done quite a lot with urban renewal tools that are available to the city for the 2 existing districts. We started thinking about a new district in 2010. The city went after and was successfully able to secure EPA Brownfields funding in a new pilot program called an area-wide planning, called the Area-Wide Planning Program. The program sought not just to focus on one specific site, which is how brownfields development through the EPA has been done typically, but rather to look at a corridor and say, how can brownfield transformation, how can the redevelopment of formerly contaminated sites lead to a district-wide revitalization project? We thought that fit well with what we wanted to do to build, again, job opportunities and tax-based growth in and around Tanner Street. So we, again, were successful in getting the funding. In 2011 and 2012, we undertook a public planning process. We had a citizens advisory committee we worked with, and it had a series of public meetings. For 2013, we worked to take the material provided by our consultants and to craft that into the urban renewal structure. It's a little different than the general plan that had been presented in several forms to the public. The information is the same, but the structure, it took some time to translate that to meet the state standards. And here we are in 2014 with the presentation of the plan. So the vision for Air City Industrial Park, Air City Industrial Park should be an active, economically vital, attractive, environmentally and economically sustainable commercial industrial district that supports and enhances existing businesses, attracts new development businesses, provides attractive multimodal links and connections, and enhances appreciation and connection to natural resources. These are the biggest picture goals of what came out of our conversations with the Citizens Advisory Committee, with the public, through our public meetings and internal conversations at the city administration level. So this is the project boundary. You can see it's very generally bounded by the railroad tracks to the northeast. Much of the right-of-way of the Lowell Connector includes a spur of Manufacturer Street to the west. In the south, it runs along Plain Street. And then it has a strange shape that then settles and runs to west-east along Canada Street and Maple Street. The reason for that strange piece there is both a very distinct decision and what's dictated by the conditions on the ground. Anyone who's been out there knows that there's a significant topographical change as one comes down the hill in that direction. And so that runs along the edge of the hill, and the hill actually provides a very nice natural boundary there between the residential properties and the industrial spaces. This plan is fully commercial and industrial. There is a single property that was formerly residential along Canada Street included in the plan area, but as of our review, it's been vacant for some time. So we can say this is not meant to be a mixed-use plan again. This, unlike the Acre Plan and the Jam Plan, this is really about industrial and commercial growth. To understand what was going on in the district, we did a fair amount of review of the existing conditions. Very generally, there's a lot of right-of-way. We very consciously included the Lowell Connector. As you'll see, we have a proposal with for its redevelopment, a more modest one than we initially investigated, but we kept it in there for the city to again be a partner in that redevelopment. So there's a significant amount of right-of-way in this plan area as well as vacant land, and this is where we see some of the real potential. All of the brown colors here are vacant land, as well as the existing industrial base, which are the green colors. Everything, it gets a little more specific there, but that's the general takeaway here. And the other part is that there's so much potential based on the existing zoning, which we are working to streamline as well. The potential build-out is 6 million square feet of space. What we see in the district is 600,000. So we see 10% of what could be there today. So when we were trying to understand where the best redevelopment potential exists in the area and how we could really look to focus city efforts for redevelopment planning on infrastructure and as a partner in this redevelopment, we were looking at, again, where was unlikely to change, and where do we think that there was opportunities with vacant and underutilized land that we could work to bring city resources or to city partnership to the table for redevelopment. On the right, the left is a little, again, from a smaller plan, but again, the thing to take away there is all of the red are things that we determined could relatively quickly be changed for redevelopment. As you see, the large red piece correlates well to our landlocked vacant area that we've identified as one of the big benefits of this. But in addition, there are significant opportunities for other redevelopment directly along Tanner Street. One note, just to avoid any confusion, the plan on the left, this is, again, to show the arc of the planning process. We initially included a section across the railroad tracks to the northeast, but that neighborhood in the Congress Street area seemed very stable, both in residential and commercial, and we decided the city didn't really have a role to play with urban renewal tools available. As a part of understanding what was happening, we worked with a consultant to get a market study, and they found real advantages to the area. We have a low relative cost within the metro area. It's right off of the Lowell connector. The educational infrastructure with UMass Lowell provides great opportunity for partnerships. And the city government, the city's ability and willingness to be an effective partner in redevelopment provides us with the tools and the history to show folks who come to the city, we are committed to this redevelopment and we can make it happen. Major findings about what's actually happening on the ground: there are title and environmental impairments, and that free and clear title and assembled areas are key to driving the redevelopment that we envision in this plan. The demand they see currently is for smaller subdividable industrial buildings, what are sometimes called plain Jane spaces, 10,000 square foot flex spaces, and retail along Plain Street and Manufacturer Street. We didn't see any demand for office space or large speculative commercial industrial spaces. So this is our redevelopment proposal. And I'll walk through the areas a little bit more in detail, but any of the darker brown represent infill industrial redevelopment, and any of the red is the opportunity for retail and or commercial redevelopment. So in the areas A and B, we see the opportunity for 40,000 plus square feet of new industrial space. Areas C and D, again, C being the area I mentioned before, that's the large landlocked vacant piece. There's significant opportunity for redevelopment to drive job growth and tax base support. We see approximately 160,000 square feet of industrial space, and in the adjacent site on D, 55,000 square feet of industrial space. Now, one thing to keep in mind here, this is the area that includes the Silresum site. That was one of the reasons the EPA has maintained an interest in the site, and that you'll see there's a large, let's see if you can see the cursor. This building right here, that is the water treatment facility on the Silresum site. This building in the back here is actually on the rear parcel of Silresum. There are 3 parcels that comprise the Silresum site. We recently held a forum with our partners at the state and federal level about this project, about how we can work together to realize what we're proposing here. And there seems to be real opportunity to redevelop the rear portion of Silresum in the coming years. So we see that as really a great opportunity to help to build confidence in what this area is and to change the perceptions and the reality of what's existed there for some time. Down near Plain Street, we have the areas F, H, G, and K. These are smaller, at least F and G are proposed for retail along Plain Street, H for smaller industrial space. The area on Manufacturer Street, it's probably the most flexible in this site. So we have one layout concept here under the area that's called K, but there are multiple possibilities with at least 25,000 square feet of additional space possible either for retail or industrial. So to facilitate that redevelopment, the city will have to take some leadership, and in some cases bold leadership, for infrastructure upgrades. The critical elements to consider are the Tanner Street realignment, Lowell connector, safety upgrades, streetscape improvements, district gateways, and new connections. We see here on the right is a proposal for the Lowell connector. It's not that important to read the details, but really what we're talking about is in the section of the plan area, from Plain Street to the end of the connector, to try and reduce widths on the lanes and reduce lanes from 3 to 2, to add trees, to generally try and create more of a boulevard feel such that folks are enticed to slow down and improve safety. This is an area we know we have significantly overbuilt capacity where speeding and accidents are a problem. And we see the opportunity, again, we toyed with some very, what creative ideas to lower the connector actually at grade to look for new connections into the district, but none of them proved feasible. But these are relatively simple and straightforward improvements that can really do a lot to help with safety on the connector. Tanner Street realignment we see is really critical. We looked in the Tanner Street planning process about what that would mean, and it can really enhance the redevelopment potential of the rear vacant lots. It can accommodate increased traffic that we hope to see from the new development in the area and provide a more attractive gateway to the neighborhood. We looked at several alternatives, and the one you see in the red that comes behind the existing scrap metal and car wash business is the one that was chosen for this plan because of the ease of maneuverability for trucks. It minimizes the impact to existing businesses, and it maximizes the redevelopment potential for all parcels. And it's a lot of words, but really drives at how we came to the conclusion that that change in Tanner Street, where you see the red line, is the best way to create a new entryway to the district that aligns with the signalized intersection from Target. General street improvements. The proposed streetscape improvements include Tanner Street sidewalk installation and repaving to create both a district that is conducive to employees, increasing job opportunities and people on the ground there, as well as a roadway that simply accommodates the truck traffic. Now it's in pretty rough shape. New residential industrial buffers on Canada and Maple Streets. Again, there's no residential in this plan, but there are two streets where residences are on one side front on industrial on the other. One of the things we try to avoid through the zoning changes, and this board's been very involved in this, is to avoid running zoning districts down the middle of the road for just this reason. So we see some opportunity for buffers to try and reduce that, the issues with the non-compatible uses. And then we have right-of-way improvements proposed around Manufacturer Street, again, in concert with the development for that area. You see on the bottom there the proposed Tanner Street section, just simply a wider sidewalk, 2 large vehicle lanes that maintain the ability for truck traffic, and a large parking lane, as well as a right-of-way reserve on one side. New and improved connections. We're talking about 2 of the main ways into the district are both on Lincoln Street and Howard Street are underpasses. We see some opportunities for very simple enhancements there, as well as new rights of way here into these interior landlocked parcels that I mentioned. We're proposing linkage here of Maple and Canada Street to further improve access to the district, and then improved multimodal access to improved access to the Gallagher multimodal terminal. It's actually very close if one comes down YMCA Drive, but there's no sidewalks. There's really nothing indicating that folks could walk from the central bus hub to what we're proposing as an employment hub. Green space, there's not a lot proposed here. Again, this is really an industrial and commercial plan, but we see 3 interesting opportunities, one being the River Meadowbrook Greenway. The second reason, other than the safety improvements, which you see here with the trees, is a walking path, maybe a shared walking, biking path within the right-of-way. There's extensive land available in and around the connector, and we're starting conversations with Mass DOT about what it would take to build some of this. As a part of that, there's a small piece of city-owned land on Cambridge Street. We could be a part of that system so that there's access in and out from there. And that there's actually a pond back there that very few people know about. So that could be a part of this. At the very least, it will likely be involved with stormwater solutions on the site, as we're proposing significant new buildings and paving in an area that's generally permeable at the moment. And there's a Cambridge Street, as I mentioned here. So here's the project plan. This has all of the individual actions spelled out, including the relocated Tanner Street, new development over on Manufacturer Street, improvements to the Lowell Connector, Greenway, new development, East Pond here, and then enhanced connections. The outcomes that we see from this plan are brownfields cleanup and redevelopment, 334,000 square feet of new development. Now that is based on what we have designed here. That's obviously up for debate based on individual project proposals, but we feel like that's a fairly conservative estimate. Hundreds of new employment opportunities, $1.38 million in new annual tax revenues at full build-out, transformation of Lowell Connector, Parks and Greenway, and gateways and streetscape. That's an awful lot all at once. Anybody have any questions about digesting that?
Yeah, Greg, if I just a couple questions on some of what you, just on the connector, the narrowing of the connector, just so I can understand that is, so, because I know in part of the plan and even in the master plan was to depress the connector, and I just, from a probability of something like that happening, I think is very, very, it's close to impossible, I think. So if you could just elaborate a little bit more, you think this is something that's feasible and something that's attainable within a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, excuse me.
And it's taking the existing elevation, leaving it the way it is, but just narrowing it. Is
Yes,
that correct? So-
exactly right. We looked at a variety of ways to try and bring it down to an at-grade boulevard and/or connector to improve connections across both sides with both neighborhoods on the Lower Highlands and with Tanner Street. But it, as you say, in the realm of reasonability, we just couldn't convince ourselves that to put together a plan that's really about taking concrete actions and seeing redevelopment happen, that would be in the time horizon of this plan. However, there is a note of some kind in the plan, which I'm always trying to figure out how to describe in the best language so that it's clear what we want is to make sure that idea survives, to say this potential this concept should exist beyond this plan because it really does have merit. But for the purpose of this plan, we're proposing something much simpler, maintaining the existing elevation and simply narrowing the right-of-way. It could even be as simple as restriping and some tree planting within the existing paved surfaces.
Now, that would be Mass DOT that would be doing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Again,
I'm assuming, is that something you'd be working with NEMCOG on as far as part of transportation plan, or?
yes, this is one of the elements we brought up in our meeting recently with, again, our regional, state, and federal partners about how this can become a reality. We had NEMCOG at the table and the state representatives talking about how to get this into the pipeline. We don't have it specifically queued up yet, but we're starting the conversations about what this will look like.
Okay, no, that's interesting. And then just another question on the new right-of-ways in order to create access to some of that landlocked, is that gonna require some takings of land, or how is that, how do you propose to orchestrate that?
So as an urban renewal plan, actually, there are many parcels that are designated with an acquisition status. We do this so that the city can act as a redevelopment partner for projects with interested proponents. This, unlike other plans, and in particular, unlike the Hamilton Canal District, the city is in no position and has no desire for any speculative acquisition of property. Rather, having the city at the table as a redevelopment partner to work on acquisition for right-of-way specifically, because roadways can be different than parcels, or for specific parcels where there are title impairments where it's impossible for even a willing buyer and seller to make a transaction happen.
So somehow the city would then facilitate that?
Yes, and we've done that in other cases, because a city acquisition through eminent domain clears all title and provides the opportunity for redevelopment.
Good, thank you.
Thanks. Other questions?
About the improvements within the Lowell connector, this involves convincing Mass Highway, convincing the State Department of Transportation to give up 2 lanes on a highway and green them and then take over the maintenance. It would, the Lowell connector would remain a state highway.
It's an interesting question. I don't know that there are other roads in the city that have started as state roadways like the Lord Overpass that eventually come into city ownership. I suspect the Lowell Connector, simply from its size and complexity, won't be in state ownership for some time. But again, we're talking about just the section from Plain Street to the end where it really transitions from a limited access highway. And I don't think anyone wants to change that south of Plain Street to its connection with Route 3 and Interstate 495. But this area where we see the abrupt change in speed and the abrupt end of the roadway, the state understands, as the city, as does the police and emergency life personnel, that there are real issues with safety there. We have very significant issues with folks understanding what it means to transition into the urban environment. So that's what we're trying to build, is a transition so it becomes obvious to drivers what's happening around them to slow them down. Again, it's the concept that you build the roadway to the speed you want them to drive, not that you put up the speed limit signs you want them to drive. And so that's our hope with this. And you're right, it does involve a lot of work very, very closely with Mass Highways, now Mass DOT, so with Mass DOT. But we've started those conversations and we're hopeful. And this is on their radar of things that they would like to improve.
It is.
I will be honest that they are not convinced that is the absolute perfect solution to what the issues are, but they're convinced that this needs work of some kind. And then we're talking with them about this. So we're putting our vision out there and see what they respond with.
Well, I'm strongly supportive of that vision. And earlier when when you were discussing the feasibility of various ideas of what to do on the Lowell connector, it sounded like the issue of feasibility was focusing on physical and engineering issues. Seems to me that dealing with the state, dealing with the Department of Transportation is likely to raise a whole other host of feasibility issues wholly unrelated to physical and engineering, but rather ideas about how highways are built and designed. And I would very much hope that this board could lend whatever help it could to that push, to that side of the plan, not just making the findings necessary for Urban Renewal Authority and taking authority, but also to work to implement some of the vision outlined in the comprehensive master plan about the about what to do with roadways, what to do with highways. It's really a bold, new, groundbreaking, trailblazing effort to try to get the state to go along with reducing and greening a highway in a community. And I think it's a great thing, and whatever we can do, I'd hope we do.
Thank you very much for your support.
Any other board members?
I have a question, Craig, relative to the overall process and the space itself that's going to be created. The city, we're trying to create the right conditions for a private developer to come in here and build the space.
Yes.
Once it's developed, who has the responsibility to market it to the appropriate people in industry?
For marketing? So this is a place where there really is some opportunity for great collaboration between the public and private sectors. So this is one of the reasons this is now called Air City Industrial Park, would be to try and help with marketing efforts. As you reach out to other communities, the concept of Tanner Street and an industrial, industrial district that doesn't really resonate with anyone, but folks understand what an industrial park is. And we chose Air City simply because of its historic legacy. And the plan itself actually talked back to how Daniel Ayer proposed this area, both the industrial area and the residential, as a place of the older type of mixed use where you had larger uses next to each other so that residents here could potentially walk down and work in this area. So that is a simple thing we're trying. Maybe we won't get any traction, but maybe that will convince folks that this is an area they want to look at for industrial redevelopment. Moving forward, there's lots of opportunities to work with private folks who want to look at those spaces, or business or property owners who want to market their own properties, as well as the city simply talking about our redevelopment initiatives, this being a focal one, as are the other urban rural areas.
Okay, so the overall plan is to develop just, standard building spaces of 5,000 or 10,000 square feet, and then at some point try to market that space.
Yes, again, that's what we're proposing.
Basic services, just.
Excuse me.
Get it going.
Yep. Yeah, that's what we're proposing here, because that's what we've found from the market study that seems to be the most needed at the moment. Now, as urban renewal plans are 20-year plans, these change over time. And they also provide the city the flexibility to change through votes of the city council and this board for major changes to alter the face of an urban renewal plan. For example, the JAM plan didn't envision the Hamilton Canal District when it was first improved, but conditions changed with the loss of the Freudenberg Nonwovens Company. There was an opportunity for land downtown adjacent to some really great assets like the swamp blocks, and so the city went through a visioning process and created a new sub-area of that. Similarly here, this is what we're looking for, but we're open to other types of redevelopment. This is simply to give to show the vision of what we want, but also give the city the tools to be a partner in this redevelopment.
So there is opportunity down the road to potentially attract growth industries, like medical technology or devices or something like that at some point in time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, fine, that's all I have.
Bob?
Yeah, I'm unclear on this whole thing. This is a 121B plan. The city has the right to take by eminent domain if they have to?
Yes, under the urban renewal statute, the city designates areas for acquisition and disposition. So these are areas where the city has a stake in the redevelopment. Those correlate directly to the redevelopment areas that we have in our redevelopment plan. So again, we started here where we said, where are the areas where we see the opportunity for redevelopment? Where are the sites that are likely to change, and where could new infill development happen? From there, we looked at what kind of infill was most likely, and we proposed this redevelopment scenario. Based on that, that's how we designate the areas where the city has an interest. And again, you're correct, under 121B, the city has the statutory authority to take sites by eminent domain, which is one option. What's much more likely, and the city has done in the past, are friendly takings where they simply agree to a purchase price. And the real benefit to the city is not the opportunity for eminent domain takings. Really, we have here roadways that the city, without an urban renewal plan, actually has the opportunity to complete, but rather for the ability to act like a developer. Within urban renewal areas, the city can buy and sell land outside of the 30B process, so we can work to put sites together and to sell them per the redevelopment plan, as I'm sure you're aware, having worked on many of these plans.
Yeah.
Pretty complicated.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sure.
The leg of the old layout of Tanner Street that goes to the back of that building, exactly.
Yep.
Does that remain right-of-way? Does the city abandon that? Is
So
that now a driveway?
as it's proposed in here, you can see here with the building on top of it, the proposal is to abandon that as right-of-way.
Okay,
That would, like everything else in the plan, be coupled with a redevelopment project. Because the city, for a variety of reasons, I would believe would want to maintain the right-of-way for the utilities or other easements and items for the city's interests in that area until such time as it's ready for redevelopment, because we can package a variety of things within the redevelopment planning.
okay. So the driveway we're seeing now, it might not even ultimately exist. They might decide to come in directly off, say there as their main entrance. Okay.
Yep, and this is one of the elements that it'll be a little complex with the engineering because of the grade change there. There is a wall here next to the VFW that would have to be shifted. But again, having reviewed it on a preliminary basis, we believe it'll work, and it could potentially provide access to both sides from this new roadway. You can see for both F and G could potentially have access off the new Tanner Street entryway.
As you were singing the praises of the relocation of Tanner Street before, I noticed it serves a significant environmental purpose as well, to pull the right-of-way off of that bank of the, it's very close to River Meadow Brook now at the entrance off of Plain Street, to pull the right-of-way off of there, get the salt away from it, and redevelop that property, however it gets redeveloped. However it gets built, it's going to have to follow the Wetlands Act, it's going to have to follow the Rivers Act, and so there's a good chance of getting a good bank stabilization and planting and design in there, and that would be a major visual and environmental upgrade.
Yep, and that's very thoughtful, and it's one of the goals of the zoning update to create performance standards based on setbacks to the river to improve the health and to potentially look for permitting opportunities with the Conservation Commission. And it's interesting, the River Meadow Brook actually, it was, as is obvious, but may not have been said so explicitly, was straightened as a part of the Lowell Connector project. It's not its natural course. But when that was done, they actually used earthen banks. So it's a relatively wild river environment there. There you don't have you see the rocks for the hardened banks like the Merrimack in some sections around here.
Right.
But it's an industrial river in the back of this area, but it is really a river environment.
Just a point of history, the original River Meadow Brook basically ran down the middle of the right-of-way for the Lowell Connector, and they moved it to one side and basically made a natural channel to relocate the brook. That's just a point of historic.
I appreciate that, and it's interesting, you see in some of the redevelopment areas we propose little, I guess what you call orphan parcels as a part of the former track of the river they literally have no ownership because they're formerly a part of the river that the city, and another example of where the city could use its authority in this plan, could acquire those rights for redevelopment where no one else seemingly could.
It's also important to create that strip between Plain and Gorham Street as a less speed location, because right now it doesn't work. you're doing 55, and the next thing you know, you're dead ending in that brick house and the end of the connector. This should meet with some interest by the state to correct that major safety problem.
That's our hope as well.
Yeah, the big problem was this connector was supposed to go through back Central Street and into downtown. So this was only part one. It's 2.7 miles of road to get you to 495. That's all it was.
On the acquisition authority, would the city have authority to use eminent domain over any property in the district, or are you designating certain acquisition
No,
parcels?
the sites that the city specifically designates, which are those where we have proposed redevelopment here.
Okay. Are you proposing the manufacturers, the DMV side as acquisition parcels?
Actually, that's a good point. I should be a little more specific in my language. All of the areas with proposed redevelopment except for Area K.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because that seems to be very differently situated than the rest of your development opportunity areas.
We've included Area K in the plan, again, simply because if the city sees an opportunity for redevelopment, it's easier as a part of the public conversation and approval process to have it in the plan now so we can review opportunities going forward. We've spoken with the landowners there. They're interested in redevelopment, but neither the city nor the landowners know exactly what they're interested in right now, which is why when you look at what we have proposed here, there are multiple layout possibilities. In the total redevelopment that I showed of 330,000 plus square feet, that actually doesn't include any redevelopment in Area K here on Manufacturer Street, to leave some flexibility there.
So, city's not looking at acquiring it. It's not looking at making right-of-way improvements there. What is in this plan for Area K? What tools would the city gain that it would be applying in Area K?
Again, it would have the same tools as the rest of the urban renewal district, but in particular, what the city's looking at is right-of-way improvements to Manufacturer Street.
Okay.
And what's an informal street now, the spur you see going off to the left there,
Yes.
which was once called Victory Plaza Drive.
Informal street, well put. I see, okay.
I only have two comments. I think it's basically a good development project, and I think the most important things that jump out at me is the cleanup on Tanner Street. Because when I first got on this planning board a long time ago, the city was dealing with that, and that gave that whole neighborhood down there, I mean, a black mark, just trying to clean it up. I remember they were trucking some of that stuff up to upstate New York to get rid of some of that mess. And the other thing is, and you indicated about the connector, anything to slow that traffic down, where it just goes to a dead end, right into that guardrail, that person's house, right at the bottom of Gorham Street. I mean, like, reducing the lanes, putting whatever type of green activity up there just to bring that speed down, because the amount of accidents that happen up there now, I mean, I'm glad to see the state's aware of that, because just in the city alone, the average person knows what's happening up there instead of looking at any traffic count. So I'd say those are two big improvements, and I think it would definitely help the city improve that whole neighborhood over there. Obviously, it's a conceptual plan, and it'll have to be tweaked like the other plans will be, with different input and different ideas as things come along. But I think it's a conceptual plan. I think it's a great project for the area. I know Rich went to a couple of meetings on it when it first came up. We designated somebody in the planning staff to go,
Citizens Advisory Committee.
get them, and as he spent the time getting the input from the neighborhood, and I think, as you say, it's a work in progress, and everything's gonna be not etched in stone like this, but you need a conceptual plan to move forward. So, so saying that, I believe you need a vote from us.
Yep, let me get into thank you very much for the thoughtful responses to this. I really appreciate it. It's very clear that you guys have really dug into the material here and tried to understand what we're proposing. Yes?
Just one more question.
Of course.
Good. Regarding hazardous waste sites like the Saracen site, have any additional sites been discovered over there? And if so, is there funding available to a potential developer to help remediate that situation?
Yeah,
I
so
think it could be very important.
environmental contamination is a very complex matter, and this is one of the real opportunities for the city to play a role here. There are funds available from the federal EPA that can, and from the state, although to a lesser extent, that can help with both assessment to understand what's happening in the ground and with cleanup to remediate it and prepare for redevelopment. The city is very active and aggressive in pursuing these funds and has a great track record both at the state and federal level of acquiring these funds to facilitate development. And if you look at the existing urban renewal areas, have been very successful in brownfields remediation and redevelopment in those sites. The contamination that exists from sill resin is generally known. There are other sources of contamination in that district, as there are in most industrial areas. As to the question if there have been new things discovered, the way it works is really the discovery is based on either testing because you're interested, which is an atypical desire for property owners who are concerned about contamination, but more likely when you're looking to sell or to redevelop your property. So this is, again, where the city can be a partner in helping with assessment and potentially cleanup, although the city must own property to use these kinds of funds for cleanup for redevelopment. So it's a very good question, and the answer generally is yes, since sill resin. There have been other things that have been found out there.
All right, thank you.
So what we need from the planning board here, again, is that related to the way the plan has been constructed. So we need a vote with two separate findings. One is that the plan itself is based on a local survey. The local survey is generally defined to mean a review of the existing conditions, which I went through initially, and a review of all the buildings in the site to make a finding that it actually is a decadent and blighted area to qualify for the urban renewal designation from the state. So you see this slide here just shows the numbering of the buildings and mentions again, as I said, that state law requires to conduct a survey. The city's planning contractor subcontracted with Thomas Miller to conduct the survey of the buildings in the plan area, excuse me. In the local survey, the subconsultant inspected 100% of the buildings and 11 from the exterior and 11% interior, and found that the majority of the buildings fit the classification of substandard, deteriorated, and/or obsolete based on the deficiency and defect categories listed here. And so you see here, again, the red buildings are the buildings that are deficient per that review. 53% of the buildings and 53% of the total square footage met the standards of being blighted here. 9 properties are in tax title foreclosure, or the city has acquired them through tax title foreclosure. And then the diversity of ownership, irregular property lines, and obsolete street patterns make redevelopment more difficult than it otherwise would be, in summary of that. So this is the first piece of what this board finds related to this plan. The second finding relates to a comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan, also more commonly known as a master plan. So in spring 2013, the planning board and city council approved Sustainable Lowell 2025, the result of an upgrade to the existing 2003 comprehensive master plan. As you know, and you were intimately involved with, master plans are long-term visions for cities and towns to create a shared vision of social and economic development. So Air City Industrial Park fits very well with the concepts described in Sustainable Lowell 2025, in particular with building sustainable neighborhoods, mobility, and access, and a healthy and sustainable local economy. In fact, within the healthy and sustainable local economy section, this is all tons of text, but the Air City Industrial Park is actually a specific defined goal with all of the points of the plan enumerated as actions that are desired within the master plan. So the next steps from here, tomorrow we'll be presenting to the City Council Economic Development Subcommittee, and then on Wednesday night we'll be at the LRTA for a public meeting. That will be our first in some months, but one of multiple that have taken place as a part of this planning process. For the plan implementation, if, again, the city is desirous of approving this plan, we'll continue to pursue a district improvement financing concept. We're currently working with NEMCOG through a technical assistance grant to study that feasibility, and then to update the zoning, as I mentioned, to provide clarity and reduce entitlement hurdles for the redevelopment. So again, per state statute 121B, I provided a draft resolution and vote for the planning board if you're desirous of voting that this plan, again, is in conformity with the local survey and conforms to the local comprehensive plan.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that, let's see, how can I read this? Yeah, that the proposed urban renewal plan does conform to a local survey, and that the proposed plan does conform to a comprehensive plan for the locality as a whole.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor and a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Yeah, thank you all for your time, really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Really interesting project.
Moving along, we have a pre-application session. The pre-application session is for 279 Pawtucket Street. The following individuals have requested the planning board to provide a preliminary review of their proposed project at the address listed above. This is not a public hearing. The planning board will render no decision related to the site plan review, nor guarantee any future decision, whether positive or negative, on any project that receives a pre-application review. The applicant is Kenneth Kasia, and the project proposes to construct a three-story mixed-use structure. The project includes the 2 commercial units at ground level and a total of 6 residential units within the remaining floors, with access to the site coming from Falls Street, an undeveloped way via a driveway. The applicant is seeking special permit and site plan review approval under section 6.7, 11.4, and Article 12 of the City of Lowell zoning ordinance. The parcel is comprised of approximately 13,507 square feet of land and is located in the traditional mixed-use zoning district. May we hear the case for the applicant, please?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, James Flood, 549 Rogers Street, representing Ken Kaiser, who I think a lot of you know. Ken is in the real estate business, and he owns many rental properties in the city and also manages property for other landlords throughout the city. He has a P&S to purchase this property, and I think a lot of you people on the board are familiar with it. I think it was about 2 years ago that I was in with a plan where they wanted to build 3 separate single-family homes on this site. The lot, well, you had a figure on the size of the lot, but the lot is a little bigger because we've measured it to the middle of Fall Street because it is a private way. It's about 15,500 square feet, and at the present time, it's vacant. When we were here before, we had this big blue building that had 3 units in it that was there, had a fire, and it was eventually taken down. There also was a driveway to the left that they used, and in this plan, we're taking that driveway out. It's really a 4-story building because the garage is going to be quite large. In his rental business, he has occasion to have a lot of building supplies, equipment, and things like that. So he's going to use the basement bays of the garage for the storage of that equipment and also for some trucks. On the first floor, Ken intends to occupy the side of the building, which is approximately 13,000 square feet, as his management office. The other side will be available for either professional or other commercial use. And on the second and third floor, they will be, as the notice said, 3-bedroom apartments. 2 of those on each floor would have 2 bathrooms, and because of the elevators, the other ones would only have 1. The basement will also include a laundry room that's located directly opposite from the elevator, where the tenants will have the right, you go down and wash their clothes. It'll be coin operated. He's retained Gavin and Sullivan as his architect, and as you can see, they've done a very nice job in designing this building. It kind of fits in quite well with the other buildings in the neighborhood, and the design goes along with what's up there. And he's also retained the services of Hancock Associates for engineering, and Hancock was involved with this the last time, and they're very familiar on the site, but they're still working on a drainage plan for it. So Ken has met with the planning department, discussed the project, but it was the feeling that he should bring it to you people to see if you have any thoughts or concerns. The property will be accessed completely from Fall Street. It's the intention to build 2 parking lots, which will have 15 parking spaces. There'll be 3 additional spaces in the garage. We've done a shared parking study, and we require 17. We're gonna have 18. So, it'll be landscaped, and I think the nicest thing about the project is everything is gonna be in the back. You won't be able to see anything from the front, all the trucks. And one other thing he's thinking of doing is moving the building back 5 feet as it's shown on that plan. And he'll landscape the front. So we're here to answer any questions, take any comments, take any recommendations this board would have for this project.
Have you had any discussions with the traffic engineer?
No.
You know, that intersection is gonna become very busy once those dorms are occupied.
No, we haven't.
Huh?
We haven't spoken
Yeah,
with
all right,
traffic
I think,
engineers.
you know, that really is gonna be key. And you got one curb cut, so,
We're blocking out the curb cut that was there before, and we're just using Fall Street,
yeah.
which is,
okay. And come in over here, yeah.
One thing there for traffic. Just make sure the mic so it picks up at home. Thank you. Just introduce yourself, if you
You
would,
know,
please,
everybody
sir.
talks about traffic,
Yeah,
but I
I'm
think
Ken
this is-
Kaiser, the developer, and I can answer something on traffic a little bit there. I don't anticipate a lot of traffic in this neighborhood. Traditionally, a lot of the apartments are rented to graduate students or upperclassmen. They very rarely have vehicles. A lot of the international students don't get vehicles when they come to school. This is walking distance to both campuses. My business is low impact also. My maintenance crew of about 4 or 5 guys shows up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and at 8:15, they're gone for the day. They come back at 4:30, they're there for another 15 minutes, and then they're gone. And 3 of my employees take their vehicles, which are my trucks, home with them. So we don't see a lot of traffic. My rental office is mostly in-house work that we do for management of other people's properties. We do have occasionally tenants come in to drop off rent, but most everything is mailed to us or direct deposit. So it depends on who I rent to next door, but I don't anticipate there being any traffic issues here.
I'm not really
From us.
concerned about the volume of it. It's the safety of getting in and out of the site that.
Yeah, there's
I
the
would
intersection of
anticipate being
Fletcher
maybe-
Street is very close to there, so that slows everything down at that point. So I've been driving in and out of that site quite a bit in the last 2 months just to get a feel for it. And once you're down there and you can turn around and park, you're always coming out forward. And there always seems to be time to get out as the light changes at Fletcher Street.
but we will check with Eric on this.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to get his comment right up front.
So what's the relief you need for the special permit?
We're gonna need site plan, we're gonna need Article 12 special permit, and based on conversations that Ken had with DPD staff, they feel he might need a special permit for a contractor's garage because of storing equipment in the trucks.
Oh, for that
underneath.
zone, he needs, okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. So that would be two special permits and site plan.
So what was the first special permit then? So it won't be the. for
Article
contract-
12,
Okay.
Article 12 special permit.
Just, Mr. Chairman, if I may, just a couple of things.
Come to for sure.
I like the architectural design of the building. It actually almost reminds me of the old St. Jean the Baptist recreation building by the boating club. If you ever- It's still down there right now, if you look
Oh,
at it.
yes, yeah, right.
It's actually has that kind of, yeah, exactly, but it has that look and feel to it, which is, it's got some nice architectural detail. Just only a comment, because I know from the last project, have you had any discussions with any of the abutters at this point?
Not yet.
Okay.
I know the nuns the last time were concerned, and we will reach out to them. But we didn't want to do it until we knew what the drainage was going to be. I think, as Ken told me tonight, Hancock is considering the same thing we discussed on the Sacred Heart with the pervious
Oh, sure.
strip on either side
Yeah,
of the driveway. But until we know what that's going to be,
Right,
you know, because I think that was their concern last time.
right, I think that will,
So we're waiting to get an answer to that.
okay. No, I would just, you've experienced at this, but I would encourage you that,
Yes.
obviously, that would serve you well. Thank you.
So getting to Fall Street. Now, I know, what's it, private?
Private way, right.
So it will be maintained by the developer?
He'll maintain, he's gonna improve the pavement of it. and
Yeah, that was my
it'll
next
be
question,
maintained,
because I
right.
know it's in need of repair, and I know just by looking at the plan, it has variable width, so I know it does change from time to time.
Yeah, they're gonna do that. It'll be the same as we discussed on the last time we were in.
Are there any others who have rights to Fall Street?
The nurses next door, I think it shows down the bottom, there's an entrance down to the right, Bob, that they go in, down on Fall Street, on the nuns.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, I think, is it DCAM that, one of the state agencies goes down there also, in
Down
the summer.
towards that river,
Canal there?
remember that was down here before? Yeah.
Blocks and canals, maybe.
Boat Club, but it was something else.
Commonwealth of
So
Mass.
they all have right, they all use it, so.
Okay. I thought they did.
So will they have an easement over there, well, there would be one,
For what?
to use the Fall Street, so there'd be no
I
problem?
mean, they own halfway to the street, it's a private way, and by case law, they have the right to improve it, so. Everyone has the right to pass and
I'm
repass over
saying,
it.
so that won't restrict them from what you're planning to do, okay? And then you have the chain link fence, is that gonna stay there, is that theirs or
That's
not?
on theirs, that's
Oh, that's
theirs.
that sisters, or that?
That's the sisters, I
Okay.
think.
I gotta admit, I like this project a little better than the last one.
Oh, yeah.
I know Mr. General and I were the ones who voted against the last
You
one.
know, as Sherry said, I never thought of that building, but I looked at the surrounding neighborhood, and this size building fits in there, I think, perfectly.
I mean, I like the
With the
fact,
ones
you
across the
have
street, and,
the parking in the back, which is
Yeah.
nice. The pictures look a lot better. I mean, before, as you know, I had a problem with the pork chop lot in the back. That was one of my big stickers on it, so, but we
you
don't have this
certainly
yet.
did.
That was, I couldn't budge on that, but you well know that, so.
You said you are moving it back?
He's thinking of moving it back 5 feet, yeah.
Yeah, because it's
Right, it's right on the street.
consistent with the
Street there, in
street.
fact, one of the setbacks.
And he said he'd put some landscaping in and make it look nice,
So,
so.
do people come into your office, so they'd come right in this main entrance right here? Is that,
Side.
what I see where it says,
They
Could be a
can come
walkway or
from the
something?
parking lot, they can get right into the building, there's gonna be a hallway down by the garage. and
oh,
that'll
on the
take
very
you right
front,
to-
on the
you can
street,
come up-
Pawtucket Street, I see where it says,
2 entrances on Pawtucket Street, 1 to each office.
I'm sorry, you have 2 inches?
Yes.
One where? I
One
see you
one to
have,
each office in the front on
okay,
Pawtucket
okay,
Street.
I got you, all right.
And then they both have side entrances with sidewalks also.
Over here, Tom, both
Okay.
sides.
Okay, I got you both now, okay, yeah, yeah. Then you have another driveway to the bottom part of the site, okay,
Yeah, the one on the left is gonna be eliminated, that was there before.
okay, okay.
How about a landscaping plan?
There will be when we
I
can,
know that the site's pretty well vegetated, except where it's clear. And, is there any thought given to try to keep some of that stuff?
I mean, I'm sure that when the engineers finishes his calculations, he'll come in with a landscaping plan, yeah.
How are you gonna handle the trash? I noticed you got one small.
There's a dumpster there.
Just one small dumpster.
Dumpster, yeah. Yep.
And then obviously you put some lighting by the parking lots, and they'll come in later too.
On the building, probably down.
On the building,
sure.
just looking down?
Yeah.
Mr. Kaiser, you said 2 entrances off of Pawtucket Street. You said 1 to each office. You're proposing 1 as an office space and 1 as retail, right? Or am I misunderstanding?
Yeah, it could be office or retail, either way, the parking, shared parking still comes out the same. In fact, I think if it's another office instead of retail, it comes out 1 less. Comes out to 16 instead of 17. So we have the option of doing another office or a small retail. And, yeah, each office will, when I move the building back 5 or 6 feet, then I'll be able to put like a paved walkway to each unit. And then on either side, there's gonna be a sidewalk with another entrance exit. That'll come out to Pawtucket Street.
Okay.
Are there existing sidewalks over there, or?
In front,
There are.
front
I
there
can't
is, yes.
remember. Okay.
Joe, does planning staff have any comments? Obviously, I said they've been working with you on this matter. Is there anything you want to address, or anything you want to bring to light?
Nothing really else further at this time, Mr. Chairman, just having a traffic engineer review the plan, particularly with the 2 kind of separate parking entrances that you have over there. That would be very beneficial to have his analysis on this.
So you think you'll end up getting, students you think will be people who you'll be renting to? I heard you say earlier.
It's possible, but it'll be open to,
Whoever,
you know,
yeah.
whoever. I think
all
it's,
that
I think it's the
development going on over
best
there.
use for that neighborhood. There's multiple apartments, multifamilies in the area right now, and a lot of them do house students.
Got a lot of funeral homes in the neighborhood.
There's a
too.
lot of funeral homes, yeah.
A lot of them.
Yeah,
I think that's the biggest stretch in the city, to be honest with you.
yeah, yeah.
When people say to me, where's Pawtucket Street? I'm like, where you going? Yeah. People from out of town always ask me, you know, I'm like, which one is it?
Well, I think one good thing about it, his office is gonna be on the first floor, so there'll be
Yeah, I
no,
like that. I
no
mean,
problems with the students
Yeah,
in
I
this
mean,
building. And
it's
like
nice
he
to have,
said,
I mean,
most-
obviously, he's gonna, I mean, you have an interest in it, you know, and it's, I mean, it's
mostly
not that
graduates.
other people don't pay attention, but when you're there and you see something like, you know, light bulb outside goes, something on curb, you know, just, it's
It's
easy
a-
just to pick it
It's
up
a
as you
big
go.
investment on his part too,
Right,
so he wants
yeah,
to
and
make sure.
there's good reason to make it look good,
Yeah,
because then you get a better return.
absolutely.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
I'm all set.
Well, thank you and good luck.
Well, thank you very much. You'll
See
probably
you in the
see it in
future, I
April.
take it?
Thank you.
Sure.
One final comment, if I
Sure.
could.
Mr. Boyle has a question?
Especially as you move if you're moving the building back 5 or so feet, hopefully that will create an opportunity for some street trees. I'm not exactly sure what the sidewalk situation is there, if there are any existing tree pits or something.
I don't think so. I don't
Okay.
think so.
No, there's not many up there, I don't think. I think he wants to put grass area, but there's really no trees up there.
The other building was just almost on the sidewalk that was knocked down. It was an old building. That I don't think there are ever any trees there.
Plus,
But
there's a lot of,
he's gonna dress it up. He'll
there's a
dress
lot of
it up.
debris in the back there, I'm sure you've
Yeah.
seen. Wasn't pleasant sight.
Have you looked at any kind of green technology here? Energy-wise or anything? Have you
I
looked at
haven't
that?
looked into that yet, like solar or something like that, you mean?
They might want to investigate that.
Yeah, that's something we'll probably take a look at with the engineers.
It might be an application here.
Yeah, we put that on an application checklist just to make people think of it, hopefully. Okay.
Yeah, we haven't talked about
You know.
that stuff.
Well, Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Good luck.
Behave yourself.
Pretty cut and dry. Pretty cut and dry.
I like this work with the topography instead of against it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's done.
I remember, I'm like. He's gone, he's not.
That's the truth.
Okay, moving along, we have notices from Budding Town, and we have an A&R report. I think we have a couple here, Joe. Let me just, and I think you gave us plans on all of them, or some of them, I believe.
Yeah, we actually had a number of A&R plans come in over the last couple of weeks. One actually was from before before Aaron left. Just had neglected to bring in front of the board before, but there are a number on here. I can go over them one by one if the board
Sure,
wishes.
if you don't mind,
or-
I think, so I think you have plans here, so just give us a,
Sure.
which one we start? What's the first one is, Bottom Ave?
Yeah, so there were actually, I had to draft two A&R reports. So we can do the one that has Varnum Ave on it first. That one's over on the Duville site. They modified the property line on one of them. It had to deal with some financing as they're going to look to utilize one of the parcels for a new assisted living facility on site. Would be 60 units. I can't recall the percentage that would be affordable at this time, but I think it'd be the first in the state that would be an affordable assisted living facility. I think it's 20 units if I had to guess. Out of the 60 would be affordable units. So they'll be coming before the board for site plan review and special permit, and they'll have to go in front of the zoning board as well for a extension of a non-conforming use. So that's Varnum Avenue. After that is 658 Andover Street. I think the board is pretty familiar with that site. At one time, there was a proposal for 4 or 5 units on that site. Since that time, the applicant withdrew that petition and ended up getting the council to abandon and discontinue a portion of Worcester Road, which is a paper street. The area that they gained from that allowed them to file an A&R, which would allow for 3 units on the site. One benefit to that was that the existing house, which they had originally intended to pick up and move on the property, won't have to be touched from its current location. So that's a benefit in that regard. And then otherwise, you would have 2 single-family lots, each over 20,000 square feet. So that's Andover Street.
So on that one there, so lot A3 is the one that's existing, so the new ones would be A1 and A2. How will they get to the site? Are they gonna need curb cuts on Andover
They're
Street?
going to need curb cuts on Andover Street, that's correct. And
Well, they have the existing one, which they can use now to get to the existing house and lot, which is A3. Because actually, it's,
Correct.
when you pull in there, it's a semicircle, so there's 2 curb cuts there. Are they gonna use one of the existing curb cuts to get to lot 2, you know?
I'm not sure at this point. We haven't seen
Yeah.
a plan which shows where the buildings are laid out, but they'll still need historic board approval because of
That's right.
where the property is. So
Good.
the new houses that are built will need
Because
that.
they could probably, I mean, looking at it, and I know the area very well, because I used to cut that grass when I was in high school and college, and it took me a long time to cut it, believe me. That's when Alice Flood owned it, before the Kings owned it. Because the question is, do they have to get the curb cut off the state road before you can approve the A&R plan to get to, well, it'd be at least minimum of lot A1?
Yeah, I mean, they'll have to show that they're not exceeding our curb cut length, so. it
But they would
can't
have
be-
to have a curb cut approval, right, by the state to get the A&R approval?
I checked with the engineering office. They didn't seem to think that it's going to require the state approval on this area of Andover Street. I'm not entirely sure why, but they didn't seem to think because there was the question whether or not it was going to trigger a mass historical review, because that would be, if it did, it would have been a state permit, which typically triggers that mass historical review. But engineering didn't seem to think it was going to trigger a state permit.
But to sign off on the A&R, would you have to see the plan that shows you need access to the houses, right?
To the current house anyway.
Right. But I mean, to the other 2, if you don't see how they get into them, would that still be okay to sign off on the A&R if you have two lots with no access from the public way?
Well, at this point, they could gain access. They would still have to obtain those permits and show that they are going to have a curb cut that meets zoning requirements.
'Cause I'm saying without showing how they're gonna get to those, then could be landlocked. Right, because on lot A3, I mean, that one, where you come in, you have the semicircle, so I'm not sure where they're using how they're dividing it up, whether it's gonna affect the semicircle, that, not because they have 2 curb cuts, or whether they're gonna come in off one of them. If they did, that could go to lot A2, but how they're gonna get to A1 without the curb cut, which, so you at least need the curb cut, what, so that before they could get the building permit, is it, or what would they need to show the curb? If you sign off the A&R, how would they have to show the curb cut to get approval? What's next, the building permit?
When they submit for their building permit, they'll have to show it, yeah.
Okay. And we don't know at this point in time, but most likely the barn in the back's coming down. This one they've talked about, that the hole just keeps getting bigger in the roof. I should say holes now, because
Yeah, Steve Stoll's been out there,
the
our historic board administrator, and
I go
it
by
it
it
does
every
seem like
day,
the
and
barn's gonna have to
when
come
they came in
down.
last time, I went and walked by it, but I would not walk in the barn for my own safety. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
he did walk in, but,
Did he? Good luck to him. I looked in, but I wouldn't go anymore. I've been in there years ago when I was young, I got cut in the lawn, but, after
So the
that.
house stays right where it is.
Correct, yeah.
That's an old house, yeah. It was a nice house way back.
Yeah, it looks rather
Yeah.
nice.
I believe it's the fourth or fifth oldest in the
Because,
city.
see, when they, all this property was developed way back with Worcester Street and Silvery Lane, that was a woman by the name of Alice Flood. Matter of fact, she's related to Attorney Flood. And I remember, and she's the one who had this whole thing. And we had another project way back come in where they wanted to make Worcester Street between Surrey Lane a public way and put in through all these, put a street in there, and all the residents were up in arms against it. The gentleman on the left, on the house who wanted to do it, was the state police officer. And then he got in trouble for cutting down trees on the lot that weren't his, but they were trees on the city of Lowell. And I know as a clerk magistrate, I've issued complaints for cutting down trees on land of another, so he was in violation of that. And the lawyer at the time was telling us that they have the right to open up that access road and use it as access because it was the paper street on Worcester. And what happened was the way someone's house, it was one of the pediatrician doctors who worked at, for the little pediatrician office here in Bartlett Street, they built their driveway right in the middle of that roadway. And the city council went up to look at it. There was a confrontation with a couple of city councilors out there, because I was there moments after it happened. And he was saying that they had the right of way through Worcester Street, and it was an easement. And the argument that I had at the time was, well, an easement is only as good as the use. And if you have people walking through there, the easement does not give you the right to drive cars through there. So I said to the lawyer, I don't know what law school you went to, what you learned from property, but it's very clear from easements that just because you have an easement and walkway doesn't turn into driving property. And as a result of all that, when we denied it, the individual on the corner there, so when you're coming in Surrey Lane, it'd be the house to the left, the trooper sold the house and moved on, and that was the end of that development. But, so that's how we had a history of that all coming through. But that was all the same property all at once when Mrs. Flood had all that Surrey Lane developed and all that whole neighborhood back there. So I can remember that from way back on the plan, so. But obviously, I think when it came in before us, I think the goal was to hopefully get 3 lots, 2 additional instead of putting in, was it 4 or 5, Joe? I forget. Or was it back and forth?
It was back and forth.
Yeah.
Yep. And one time they showed 5, another time they showed 4.
Right. Yeah, and then they were gonna try to come in with the roadway and open it up that way and everything else, because it's a very big lot. I mean, let's face it, you're looking here, what, they're 23,000, 24,000, and 28?
Yeah,
So, I mean, and they only need 10,000 in the neighborhood.
that's correct, yeah.
Right, yeah. So, okay, so, what's the next one, Emerson Ave?
The next one is one we actually cannot endorse on Emerson Avenue because the frontage for Emerson Avenue is actually located in Drake.
Oh, okay,
And
so we need.
they had
these-
filed an AR, so what they're actually gonna have to file is a definitive subdivision. Because the board can't endorse an A&R plan where the board
You
can't
don't
say
have
that there's,
jurisdiction over Drake and land.
that they have sufficient frontage, right? Because the frontage is in Drake, it's not, there's 0 frontage in Lowell, so they'll actually have to file a definitive subdivision where the board, if they found it appropriate, would have to waive that typical requirement of frontage. So that's what they'll have to file if they want to attempt to construct the 2 single-family lots that they show in the plan. They'll also have to get approval from Drake as well. I'm not entirely sure what Drake's rules are, but they will need to get approval from Drake as well.
Yeah.
It's also, though, eventually, if they were to construct 2 houses over there, would have to get an intermunicipal agreement between both Drake and Lowell
Mhm.
to figure out who's going to service it with water, sewer, fire, police, and so on.
I remember we had something come in before us in the past similar to that, and it was, part of it was in Drake, and we're like, you need approval from both.
Right.
Yeah. And the small piece was, it was actually up by the Hannaford, over there by heading towards Drake, over by the Drake dump, and, so they had to come in. What they did is, since we had like 90% of it, they went to Drake first, then came back to us to satisfy us quicker where, yeah.
Joe, I have some questions on this. Is this all currently one lot, Lot A and Lot B?
Yes,
So there's just basically splitting that lot,
correct.
and, okay. So they are creating 2 lots and 2 parcels out of what is currently 1 lot.
So what do you say, he couldn't sign on?
Correct. I mean, really, right now, they should identify it as 4 parcels.
He's not, he can't sign on.
Yeah, this is true, because none of them are buildable. Okay, if the frontage on Emerson Ave in Drake is not considered frontage for the purpose of our A&R review, is it also not considered frontage for the purpose of our zoning, and he's gonna need to get a variance to build with 0 zoning?
It's possible. I'll have to check and see if they'll need a variance as well, but they will need definitive subdivision approval from this board, where the board would have to waive the requirement of having appropriate frontage. It's, as you say that, it's probably likely they'll need a variance as well for having no frontage.
Have you brought this plan before anyone in the law department?
Yeah, our director, actually, Eric Slagle, reviewed it with me as well, who used to be in the law department, is now our director. And that was our conclusion, was based on our review, was that we couldn't endorse it because of the frontage being located in Drake.
Okay,
I think they'd be better off to get whatever approval they need from Drake at first, then come back.
okay.
Because I don't think we're gonna move it. I don't think until they have that, yeah. On a case like that, I think, like you're saying, it's difficult for us to give them any relief unless they have some type of relief from Drake at first, because then we're like, how do you get to the house?
Yeah,
So the
no frontage in
actual,
Lowell,
couldn't they
unusual.
A&R this through the Drake Planning Board?
I don't know if he has the frontage on a public way, right?
I'm not sure what
Because their
Drake
lot's not big enough.
requires. I'm not sure what Drake requires for their frontage requirement.
Frontage requirement,
Should be a good
yeah,
case.
Oh.
yeah, so,
I don't know if they'll need any kind of relief for Drake as well.
But assuming that it met,
Drake
assuming that 103 feet is sufficient frontage under Drake zoning, would he be allowed to get an A&R, to A&R this, get A&R approval through the Drake Planning Board? If our problem is it doesn't have the frontage,
Right.
Drake, if he goes before the Drake Planning Board, they'd be looking for, does it have frontage and does it have buildable area, right?
Yep.
Right.
Uh,
So it would depend on their lot area requirement as well. I mean, they might need something like a variance for a lot area. But I guess in theory, if they had the required area and frontage, they could, and adequate access, which they should on Emerson Avenue, they should be able to get it from Drake, but they wouldn't be able to get such from Lowell.
What's that last part?
But Lowell couldn't grant an A&R approval.
Okay,
because of the
Lowell can't grant them A&R approval. They could get A&R approval from Drake, and wouldn't that moot the need to file a definitive subdivision plan with us? The lot would already be subdivided.
But part of the property is in Lowell as well, and as such, under our zoning ordinance, we review the property in its entirety as if the property in its entirety were in Lowell.
Under the zoning ordinance, yes. But talking about the issue of subdivision, could Drake sign off on the subdivision of this property, including Lot A and Lot B, finding that it has sufficient frontage and sufficient area? And he would then be able to take that A&R plan that was approved in Drake, register it at the Registry of Deeds, and now he has subdivided land, and those 2 lots exist.
They would still need approval from Lowell because property is in Lowell.
And even if you got the Drake, I don't know if Drake could give them the A&R because they don't have the total area square footage.
Yeah, most likely not, because they only have 2,000 square feet or so in Drake
So it's not gonna meet the requirement for a single lot.
for a single family.
I only have 2,000, so for Drake to give them an A&R, they give them an A&R on 2,000 square feet, so then the whole, because they have to pretend like the whole property exists in Drake, and we have to pretend like the whole property exists in Lowell. So
Correct.
when we look at in Lowell, we have to talk about the 8,000 relief and exclude anything from Drake unless they have permission from Drake.
Now,
Right, go ahead.
is that
No way to get to the property, I mean,
is that the law? Is that state law that Lowell cannot approve an A&R for land that exists in
It should
Drake?
be-
Drake cannot approve?
we don't
an
have
A-
jurisdiction over it, yeah.
Okay,
Right.
Because we've had this issue before that we've dealt with. yeah.
okay.
I mean, it was similar to this, but not 100% on.
Right.
Because they're saying, and so that's why when we had one before, what happened was they went and got their relief in Drake, it then came back to us. Especially here in this case where, 80% of the property's gonna be in Drake?
Yeah,
Lowell, I mean?
The house is gonna be in Lowell, and the address is gonna be in Drake.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. So they have two, I'm sure they have
Who
two,
do they pay taxes to?
both.
Both.
Both?
Yep.
Portion
Councilor
taxes.
Ed Kennedy pays taxes to Tewksbury and Lowell. His backyard just touches Tewksbury, small piece. So he has to pay taxes on both.
Yep.
I remember when he moved that house, because I used to work with him years ago. But, he has a small piece that just
Look at
happens to touch
48.
Tewksbury. He still has plenty of land in Lowell, but he gets a tax bill from both. We have a sliver of land.
That's
Yep.
true, I should look at 48, okay. I'm bringing all of this up because I'm wondering if it is going to be, if it will be legally necessary for us, if we have no choice but to put this through the definitive subdivision approval process, or if it would be allowable for us to approve it under an A&R by waiving some subdivision regulations. Because if there isn't public infrastructure being built, if we're not trying to get streets or sidewalks or, public utilities or anything as part of the project, I'm not sure that the additional review requirements and submission requirements are for a definitive subdivision plan, and the additional staff time that takes and review time for the board and everything would really, if there would really be a purpose to it.
I don't think we have the authority to waive it because we don't have the jurisdiction over it.
Right.
It's out of our jurisdiction, so we can't act on it. We
Right.
can't waive something that doesn't sit in the city of Lowell limits. That's outside of our authority.
Period,
So they have to come in with the plan like that. That's what we have to do in the past.
Right.
Yeah, they definitely have to come in and get approval from the board. I'm wondering if they have to get definitive subdivision approval, or if it is possible for the board to give them A&R approval.
I don't think we give them the A&R.
They can't, the board can't give an A&R approval.
Because,
Just gave Joe permission to sign off on it, but I don't know if he's gonna, at the last meeting.
right,
And plus, you'd run it by Eric,
Right.
he's,
He was our land
planning
use
staff,
attorney.
and also he was, city solicitor. When he works for solicitor's office, so I think legally, the first question we do would ask if we had that authority. My recommendation, my memory, if it served me correctly in the past, we couldn't act on that, but we found the way to accomplish the means by people going to Drake at first, then coming back.
Right.
yeah, so,
If I
yeah,
remember the details 100%, because it was a while ago, it was like, that was when they were putting the Hannaford up there, and there's a piece of property that was very, very close to that area, and Drake it, yeah.
so I guess my question is, would we have the authority to approve this lot split under under the A&R process instead of the subdivision review process? And B, from a policy perspective, do we want to make them go through, if we do have the option, do we want to make them go through the definitive subdivision process, or would that be a waste of, instead of the A&R, or would that be a waste of
I think-
everyone's time?
Under the A&R, that's state law, so we can't infringe upon state law, we're totally outside of our bounds. We can only make laws that do not violate the state law, but can conform to our local zoning, and we can, bring it down a bit, but we just can't make it contrary to Chapter 40B,
Right.
which is what the A&R falls under. So, obviously, staff had the opinion that it wasn't entitled to the A&R, which I agree with. Basically, I'm sure they'll have to come back and look at it, whichever way they want to come in before us, and then from there, we can get any recommendations we need by DPD staff and by the law department, which we've had in the past. If we have a question like, which is the best way for us to do it? What do we need to act on it? How can we help these people get the relief they're seeking for? And then have them guide us, which is the best process to walk through.
Yes.
That way, we're not doing it, and then it gets overturned later and come back and all that
Right.
stuff. You can say, we understand the process, but how do we accomplish the means to get to the end?
Yeah, the one thing you don't want is to give them a defective title.
Right.
Right.
Because that's a mess down the road, and, if, we're in favor of doing it, you say, okay, we understand what they're doing, boom, 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 whichever way planning staff recommends is the best way to do it. We have a question, we'll send it to the law department, and if they're gonna come in with this in the future, you can say, this is what we discussed last time, and even talk to Eric about it ahead of time, so maybe have some of those answers ready for it. I'll give one of us a call, and myself, and say, can
Right.
we ask him informally to give us an opinion, which is not an opinion that's going to the people who own the property.
Right, we're actually
Because he has the
going
right
to be
to
meeting
act on a recommendation from us and not necessarily to the public. Because then that recommendation isn't a public recommendation and it's a board recommendation, and it makes a big difference down the road. Big difference.
Right.
Because we can ask for an informal decision, which the applicant cannot rely on if there's litigation later.
Yes, absolutely. It would be the equivalent of if we asked Joe to comment on an aspect of a project at the meeting. It would just be written down instead of verbal, but
Because
it would just be
sometimes,
the staff talking to us.
because they come in, I forget what project it was, a while ago, people come in and said, well, we want an opinion from the law department. And I spoke with the law department, says, we're not giving them an opinion. The planning board wants an informal opinion from us, we'd be more than happy to render that opinion. But we're not committing to the applicant. And then we got our informal opinion, which was non-binding, so they could not use that if they didn't like what the planning board did down the road in litigation. Because they were doing fishing. I want the law department to do all the legwork for us and do all the legal back work. Law department says, no, we don't work for them. But we would be more than happy to consider informally from the planning board. And that's what the recommendation we got, and then we proceeded, yeah. So in this one, you didn't sign off on it, so maybe we'll be seeing it in the future.
Correct, yeah, we're actually going to meet with the applicant for this tomorrow
Okay.
to go over
Alright.
why we can't endorse it and what their appropriate application path is.
Well, let us know what you make out. Okay, moving along, do we have any general correspondences, anything from any of the board members, from the various boards they're
We
on?
have two more, don't we?
No, I have nothing
Okay.
tonight.
Jerry, no?
We have
Oh, we have more A&Rs.
two more A and R.
Oh, yeah, which one was it? What's the other one?
There were two other
Oh, I'm
ones.
sorry,
One was on Cogger Road.
okay, I apologize, yeah.
This one was a fairly quick, it was a land swap between two adjacent property owners. One gave approximately 1,200 square feet to the other. Each one still is in compliance with frontage and lot area and access, so that one was a pretty straightforward one. And then the other one was, had to deal with something that almost looks like an alleyway over on Garnett and Pearl Street. Part of the, if I remember correctly, part of the property on Pearl Street was part of the tax title auction. I believe the property on Pearl Street adjacent to this area.
Mhm.
And as part of facilitating a potential sale of that property, the group that has the adjacent property on Pearl Street was interested in this sliver of land as well in order to have a couple parking spaces. Will be a couple parking spaces on site. So the area that's adjacent to Pearl Street would merge with the adjacent property on Pearl Street. And it would still provide access to the building on Middlesex Street, as I believe there is a small sliver of the building that crosses over, so they would have a permanent access easement in case they ever had to do any maintenance on the building and such. So the sliver that's shown, has frontage on Pearl Street would merge with the adjacent property on Pearl Street. And would facilitate a potential redevelopment of that site.
Yeah, so that concludes what we put on the A&Rs, okay. So following back up, do any of the board members have any further comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman?
Second?
Motion's made and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, we have adjourned, and good luck, and thank you, everyone, and happy St. Patrick's Day.